Welcome. I'm Josh Milliken from Dread Central, and I've got my hood up in honor of Sacrifice, the latest film from Dread Presents, which is on VOD today. We couldn't be more excited to celebrate. We are here with the filmmakers and the wonderful female leads from the cast. The filmmakers, Andy Collier and Tor Mian. How are you guys?
Excellent. Good.
Very, very well. Thank you very much.
Right on. We're fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us from overseas. And to the wonderful women of Sacrifice, Barbara Crampton, Sophie Stevens, and Johanna Adadal, welcome so much. We are so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Excited.
Well, we seriously couldn't be more pleased. Sacrifice is a special film. We're all just so excited about it over at Dread Central and Epic Pictures. We've put a lot into this, and the momentum is strong. I think we're already nearing the top 15 horror movies in iTunes.
Wow.
Hopefully that will go up even more. Hopefully a lot of you joining us here have also RSVP'd for the free virtual screening that we're holding right after this, because if you haven't seen Sacrifice yet, you'll definitely want to after we talk about it here. So in a little while, we'll open it up for questions, but for now, I'm gonna start off by talking to the directing duo, the filmmaking duo, Andy and Tor. First of all, what's it like being part of a team? Have you guys directed separately, and do you like collaborating better?
After you, Andy.
Oh, go for it. No, you go for it. This is how polite we are.
Please.
This really represents how we agree on everything. Not. Yeah, no, we've both directed separately as well, and I think that went just as badly as collaborating. But collaborating means actual human interaction, I guess, which we know how important it is now, and these times especially. So even if the vast majority of time together means viciously fighting, at least there is some kind of human interaction.
Interesting.
Yes, I mean, we fought a lot before we got to shooting, but I think we'd resolved all our fights by the time we got to Norway. So
well, it's just the majority.
Yeah. So I don't think the actors saw us punching each other much.
I know that you guys are being pulling my leg a little bit, but it is interesting to hear about some potential tension, because a lot of times that's where great art comes from, or so I've been told. Now, Sacrifice is based on a short story by Paul Kane, and when I did a little research for this panel beforehand, I stumbled across an interview he did recently where he talked about how you guys hooked up and talked about, adapting his short story into a film. He got plenty drunk and had a great old time, yeah?
I remember that day. Yes, that was quite good fun. Paul's not actually seen the movie yet, and for each draft, it got further and further away from his story. So when he finally sees it, he might, well, luckily I'm in Cyprus. Paul's in the UK.
He'll
might be in trouble.
Very drunk once again after he sees it. He realizes how much we've changed from his brilliant original story.
Well, he does mention that that was one of the things you were honest with him about from the get-go, that you were going to make some changes. He seemed game for it. You think he pushed it too far?
I think
we'll find out soon.
The reality is, if we had done a straight adaptation of his short story, we would probably need 10 times the budget just for the SFX. But we loved the essence of the story, and hopefully we've maintained that at least.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait to do a deep dive on this and talk some more. But let's talk to the cast a little bit. Sophie, this is really kind of your film. I mean, your character is the linchpin that holds everything together. You're the one that the audience can't help but put themselves in your shoes. I mean, was it exciting, challenging, being the star and having so much hanging on your performance?
Yeah, I guess I feel like I try to stay away from thinking about that, but yeah, I think she's definitely sort of the sort of human being at the heart of it. So I really enjoy playing those kind of roles where it's not necessarily too far away from me, but just in a completely crazy situation. So I
Right.
think, yeah, I think that was fun.
Well, I gotta say, like, I'm always surprised when I find out that people I've seen on camera doing American accents are actually from other countries. Your American accent is so spot on, and I say that as somebody, as an American who can't fake being from the UK. I can't do a phony accent from another country to save my life, but you're so convincing. Was it difficult for you? How easy was it for you to switch into that dialect?
Thank you for saying that, because it's always a worry. That's, the first thing I think, if that's not believable, then the rest of the performance just falls away. So, yeah, I was really nervous about it. And I had Barbara with me, which was great. So we were living in the same house together. So we would go over a couple of bits. But I feel quite lucky in that accents have always been something that I've, I think since drama school, I've sort of been just naturally all right with. And then, yeah, you just have to keep on top of it. And the odd sounds dip every now and then. And I know, obviously, the audience is American widely. So, yeah, let's see. Let's hope that it's okay.
Hey, you had me totally convinced. Now, Barbara, you were in the same boat in that you were doing an accent that was different from the dialect you were raised in. You've been in so many films that you have, so many people come into the movie knowing what you sound like
Yeah.
life, but you nailed your accent too. Was there, were you feeling a lot of pressure about that? Was that something you were worried about as well?
Well, I wasn't worried about it, but the filmmakers were. They said to me, "Can you do a Norwegian accent?" And I said, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll figure it out. I'll get it." And they're like, "No, really, can you do one?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure I can do it." And then again, they said, "Well, could you send us a little something?" So I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to send them something before I even work on it. So what I did was, and what I ended up doing was hiring somebody for about 8 weeks to work on all of the dialogue with me. And I had this woman from the Scandinavian school. She's Norwegian, and she teaches people to speak Norwegian, to come over to my house. And I did just a little snippet of the dialogue, and then I sent it to the guys just so they'd feel confident that I could do it. And then after that, I worked with her before I even went to Norway. And one of the things that I wanted to try and do was to be even more Norwegian than any of the Norwegians. So I wanted to have an accent that was really authentic and sort of old world and old school, like an old timer. So there was actually certain words in the movie that I say more like an old timer would, because I'm the head of a cult. And I figured if I'm the head of the cult, I have to be the most Norwegian of anybody. And so, working on that was really fun and different and exciting for me. And it was also, it's probably a little, affrontive to some viewers. Like you're saying, people are used to hearing me speak in an American accent, and then to all of a sudden see me speaking, with another accent. And I speak a little Norwegian in the film as well. Is probably, it's a little abrupt, for certain audience members, I think. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, you definitely you came through. You're right that the fact that we know what you sound like, that we're so familiar with you, it could put some people off. But it only took a few sentences, and I was completely sold, and I was ready to just watch this Norwegian sheriff come in and try to solve a mystery. And you nailed it, Barbara. It was fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Johanna, I really loved your character Astrid, and I'll tell you why. You know, when we first meet you, you're so quiet, and one of the characters even mentions that he thinks you might be a little slow. But then when we do hear your character speak, it's with you know, such profound words that are both poetic and you know, almost academic. So your character is all about like having so much more going on below the surface than we see on the outside. So first of all, really great job with a very mysterious character.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, I was trying to find out about you a little bit on IMDb, and there's really nothing there. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into acting.
So this was actually my first like ever role that I got, which was quite like, it was very like out of the blue. I just started acting school like 6 months earlier, and I got this casting call from my modeling agency actually. And they were like, "Oh, can you act?" And I was like, "Well, I go to acting school, so hopefully, hopefully I can do a little bit." So yeah, I went to this audition, and you know, I really connected with the script. First of all, I thought it was the scene. You know, I really connected with the scene that I was auditioning with. And as you say, the words are like very profound and poetic and beautiful. And I'm also Swedish, so I could really kind of connect with the Norwegian, Scandinavian vibe of the script. And yeah, so I booked this role, and you know, went to film it a few
And we
months
play mother
later.
and daughter. So
Yeah,
that
you
was
guys are great.
Yeah.
What was it like working with Barbara?
It was amazing. Like she was horrible. no, it was great. I feel so lucky to be both, you know, to both work with Sophie and Barbara in my first film, especially because they were so like, you know, they're both such amazing actresses. And you know, I felt like we all supported each other. We stayed in the same house, and you know, we kind of went over the scenes together. I mean, especially for me, I remember we rehearsed my scene before I did it, and it was just, you know, it was just very like helpful to work with, you know, true professionals with a lot of experience. And
well,
yeah.
you've got a great career ahead of you because you bring such a wonderful natural authenticity to it. You know, obviously you know, the fact that you're from Scandinavia, but you know, your scene is just such a really wonderful scene. You know, it's visually striking and it's poetic. So, you know, you really nailed it too. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You know, in addition to just the wonderful performances all around, one of the most striking things for me about Sacrifice are the underwater elements. And I know, I mean, I just did a little research, and I know that you guys did a lot of the underwater stuff in tanks on a set somewhere. Andy, Tor, you guys want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, when we were working on basically on the shot list, we really wanted something to tie it together and make it feel not just Lovecraftian, but also, you know, we were really inspired by the Call of Cthulhu. So we wanted to make it as wet or watery as possible. And we really worked hard, and we spent a long time coming up with the transitions and how we were going to shoot them and what we wanted to shoot. But then when we came to filming, it was obviously a lot more difficult than we imagined. And we hired a tank in London, which is, they've shot a lot of James Bond there, and they shot the Shark movie 47 meters down there as well.
Oh, wow.
So they're good. It's only 6 meters deep, so that was a lie, but they're really supportive and really helpful. It was a great place. Johanna spent a long time swimming in that pool, but from the pool, it seemed fine.
Well, you know, the way you guys use water is more than just visually stunning. I mean, it feels like there's a thematic connections. You know, the shots, like you were saying, or the transitions between shots. You know, there's a lot of like, you know, either becoming submerged or coming out of the water. You know, going in between two worlds. And there's also that element with dreams. A lot of times, you know, we think we're seeing things as they are, but then we're pulled into either a waking world or conversely into a dream world. So that was really fantastic. You want to speak a little bit about that, Tor?
Sorry, go on.
Oh, after you, Andy.
Yeah, again, that was really inspired by the Call of Cthulhu, where Cthulhu kind of operates by hallucinations and dreams. So we really wanted to really make that influence really obvious. I'm not sure whether it was, but that was the intention. So it was, I think we were quite, we were quite loyal to the source material there, or that was the plan anyway. So
yeah.
Absolutely, and originally, the very first draft of the script was actually set in the UK. But once we made the decision to move to Scandinavia, to Norway, and that obviously presented a very, very aquatic environment. I mean, you're surrounded by fjords, so it was just natural from that point of view as well to really try and exploit that visually and thematically.
Right.
And also, so yeah, also at the time, shooting a culty folk horror in Scandinavia, we thought we were really original, but just when we went to shoot, Midsummer came out, so that was a bit of a curveball. So now we're a bit original.
Yeah, I mean, there are connections on paper, but they're such unique films. I wouldn't worry about that at all. Keeping on the aquatic element, for the actresses, what was it like? Because, all of you have scenes either in the water or right on the shore of the water. I mean, what was the weather like when you were out there filming, and what was it like for you professionally?
It was cold, and we wear robes in the film. And I don't know when the decision was made to put us in wetsuits, but it was a good one. So we had wetsuits underneath our robes, which you couldn't see.
Interesting.
And that afforded us the ability to be able to stand in the water for hours on end to do the scenes for the, it's almost like a baptism. It's called an Altaraskonga. At one point, this one time during the day, it was actually really beautiful out and the sun was shining, but it was really freezing.
What was it about for you, Sophie?
Oh, I think I was the only one that never went in. Is that right?
Right. But you were right up there though. So
yeah, I feel like I was just watching the whole thing, wasn't I? So
yeah, you were pregnant. So.
But there was one time, Johanna, when you had to go in the water and you weren't able to wear a wetsuit.
Right, you were swimming.
Yeah,
I mean, were you really swimming through the? Is that something that you can do because you're from the region, or was it just incredibly painful?
That's because she got paid. She was able to. She got paid.
Well, so actually, before we did a shot in London. Actually,
okay.
we were supposed to use it, but then I think when we filmed that scene, like it was between like 2 a.m. and like 6 a.m. or something, and I think Andy told me on set that we couldn't use it, so we had to make another shot, like me coming out of the water. So I had to jump in like completely naked. but luckily we got it in one shot, so it was good. It was fine. I don't, it's like we just what you got to do.
But I mean, you're just so smooth and confident in that scene. That's what I was thinking. I mean, maybe if you're from the region, you can handle it. Because I'm a California boy, and I get cold just watching things like that. So,
I see.
Congratulations. Well, can you guys share some of your favorite experiences while filming?
I think just being in Norway was absolutely delightful. I don't remember if you even told me, if you guys said why we were shooting in Norway, or you just you decided to change the location, but that was one of the attractive things about actually doing the movie, was to film it in Norway and be in these fjords with all this water, and the mood of the whole piece. After reading the script, I could really picture it there after looking at photographs online for it, because it seems very big and expansive, but at the same time we were in such a rural area, and it took us a long time to get anywhere. So there was this odd sense of claustrophobia, even, that sort of goes with this feeling of, being on an island that you can't escape, and, being closed in and closed in by the mountains and the water, and just feeling like there is no escape from this beauty. But when did you guys decide that you were going to shoot there?
That was actually quite early, Barbara. I think the first 1 or 2 drafts of the script were in the UK, but we wanted to move away from the Wicker Man and so forth.
Yes,
Move
sure.
away from the UK. And Tor's half Norwegian, so he decided that he wanted a free vacation to see his family, so he decided we'd shoot there.
It definitely adds to the isolation of it all. Going to the aquatic metaphor, sacrifice is a fish out of water story in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, having it even farther away, any time you're on the same, island or continent as civilization that you're familiar with, there's some security there. You can always find a city, but taking it to a country that a lot of viewers aren't familiar with, and then, putting it on an island inside that foreign country, it was just really great. Added to the isolation and, made it all just so much more impactful.
Yeah, I definitely add to that. When it helped a lot, I think, because it was just us there. And I think we filmed, what was the closest place that we filmed? And it was like an hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
What was that? The one place that we went to, and even there was just
At
so
the
quiet.
bar, in the bar scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say it was quiet, and it was for 99% of the shoot, very, very quiet, and it really is isolated. But I maybe not one of my favorite moments, but one of my most perversely memorable moments was, I don't know if Andy remembers this, the very, very first day we were meant to be filming in this incredibly isolated, quiet location, and then a construction crew turns up at this one house just meters away from where we're filming, and completely wrecks our sound. And I thought,
It doesn't matter where you go, there's always going to be that X factor that you didn't plan for.
Exactly.
In the middle of nowhere, we had construction. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not always
that-
okay. Yeah. I think my favorite scenes were the ones that were in the water, just because it was so beautiful.
Absolutely.
I think they're just visually striking scenes, the nighttime scenes and the daytime scene. And that was far away from the place that we were staying at as well. There was really nothing around. And we had little tents with heaters, and we had our wetsuits. But I think that was one of the most beautiful locations I've ever filmed any movie at, was that beautiful daytime scene, the baptism scene. I just, it was so stunning.
I mean, it's definitely one of the most impactful parts of the entire film is the scenery, where the geography becomes a character in and of itself. A few movies achieve that, and this one definitely does. And I think that's why people are going to be so captivated by this, because it really transports you someplace else immediately, and it's just a fantastic film. Here's something I just wanted to throw out for all of you, because I'm just interested in your opinions. We seem to be in the midst of a kind of like a Lovecraft resurgence. Why do you think cosmic horror and Lovecraftian horror is so popular these past few years? Anyone?
Well, I'm sorry, I'll speak up. Lovecraft is
a thing or two about Lovecraft, don't you?
Yeah, I know a thing or two about Lovecraft, but yeah, I'd love to hear from the guys, because I know they have a point of view about this too. But I feel like with Lovecraft and cosmic horror, it's all about these things that you feel you can control in your world, but when you really look deeper, you can't control anything. And so many things happen in our lives that we feel like we are the authors of, and we're really not. And Lovecraft talks about that all the time, about how, just the fear. Oh, my light keeps going on and off. The fear of the unknown, and not being able to have complete control over your world, and how fearful that is to us on a real, very deep level. And now more so than ever, you know, with the pandemic. Look at what's happened to all of us. It's affected all of us. It came out of nowhere, you know, seemingly, and it's affected every person on this planet. So I think it's a very timely theme.
Absolutely.
What do you guys think?
In terms
Sorry,
of
go Tom.
I don't know if it's necessarily a case of there being a resurgence as such, although it does seem to be becoming more mainstream, I would say, and it just means the Lovecraft's popularity just continues to build.
Right.
And I think we're just going to see more and more genre movies, horror movies that are quite clearly influenced by Lovecraftian themes, not necessarily because we're living in a Lovecraftian era, just because it's continuing to grow. And frankly, you know, Barbara's partially responsible for that, and filmmakers like Barbara. I mean, she really has, from an acting point of view, probably been the pioneer when it comes to getting Lovecraft out into the mainstream.
Absolutely.
It's so frankly crazy that we have Barbara on this movie. So wonderfully crazy.
Andy?
Yeah, I would agree with Tor. I mean, obviously in the 80s, there was a Lovecraft resurgence then, largely spearheaded by Barbara. But I think since then, it's been a constant growth. And I think it will continue to grow. And I think the few Lovecraftian films that have come out recently will really kind of make a snowball effect, because they've all done really well, and more people are starting to understand the concept of cosmic horror. So I think, yeah, I think it's going to continue to grow. I hope so anyway.
I think so. Fantastic. You know, I'm just enjoying talking with you guys so much. I'm going to be a little more generous though, and start fielding some questions from our viewers, share you guys with those who are watching along. So Dan Port, who's watching on Facebook, he's curious, were there any unique difficulties with having actors from various countries and backgrounds?
To be honest, apart from Barbara, although most of the cast is Scandinavian, we were actually able to cast pretty much everyone in the UK. And one of the cynical reasons that we chose to shoot in Scandinavia is everyone's more or less speaks perfect English. Better English than most English people and Americans, to be honest. So from a purely practical point of view, it wasn't actually very problematic.
Awesome.
And also, Tor, you might remember that the extras we had, they were all so well behaved. And I said to Holstein, the Norwegian line producer, like, which agency you get them from? They're amazing. They're the best extras we've ever worked with. But they were just Norwegian people. They're so polite and so nice that, you know, they sat quietly until we wanted them.
Everybody says the Canadians are the nicest people, but I think it's the Norwegians.
Yeah, and they had, remember how warm they were dressed as well? They were like super prepared for the weather.
Yeah.
Like they all came in like, you know, like proper like gear, camping gear.
Yeah. Well, they're also happy there. They get free university and free healthcare.
And it's so beautiful.
And it's so beautiful. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. That's great to hear. It is kind of a funny question for a couple of reasons, but someone on our Twitch channel, a bunch of letters streamed together that I can't read. Johanna, they're asking you to teach us how to say, keep your tentacles to yourself in Norwegian, except maybe you don't know Norwegian because you're Swedish.
How do you say it in Swedish?
I can teach you in Swedish if you want.
Please, yes. How do you say keep your tentacles to yourself?
Håll dina tentaklar för dig själv. Håll dina tentaklar för dig själv.
There you go.
We're gonna have to sample that somehow and turn that into a meme or something for Sacrifice.
Do you want me to type it? You can send it.
Yeah, if you want to, for sure,
Sure.
for sure. Oh, that's going to be the next great meme. Here's a question for you, Barbara, from Brian Biddle. Has your recent experience behind the camera changed the way you approach your performances? And if so, how? Yeah, you want to talk about a little bit about your experiences behind the camera?
Well, I've gotten into producing a little bit. So that's been quite a different aspect of the business to work on. I don't know if it's given me a more of an overview of the whole business. I don't know if it's, affected my performance and my approach to my performance, because I think it's just two different things. But I don't really know how to answer that question, just that it gives me a fuller understanding of the process of making a film. Like when I first started as an actress and worked on movies like Reanimator and From Beyond, I mean, that was a time when everybody kind of stayed in their lane, Stuart Gordon was a director and that's what he did. And he had Dennis Paoli was his writer, and I came in and I was the actress. But when I came back after taking a little break from working and worked on You're Next, I was on a set with Joe Swanberg and Amy Seimetz and Ty West, and they were actors, but they're also producers and writers and directors. And Adam Wingard would grab the camera from our camera guy and say, "Let me shoot this scene." They all know how to do everything now, and I feel like I'm kind of late to learn this, that you actually can work on every aspect of the business if you want to, if you learn those skills. And I'm just kind of learning the skills a little bit in the beginning of my producing career, and I hope to continue that. But it's given me more of an appetite, if that's even possible, for what I do, and a love for telling stories and bringing people together to work on films, and people that I really enjoy being around and working with. So it's just given me a greater appreciation for what I do.
That's fantastic, Barbara. Here's one for the filmmakers. It was asking, maybe this person hasn't seen the film, because they're asking about whether you use primarily practical or digital effects. And I think it's almost exclusively practical. Am I correct?
Yes. Yep. 99% practical with a little bit of digital enhancement. But I think practical effects are just more organic. And once it's done, it's done. So we had some problems making them work, and nothing worked quite as we planned. And Sophie spent a day in a bathtub watching a robot tentacle refuse to operate. But overall, I think practical effects are the way to go, and that's what we did.
Fantastic. Do you feel the same, Tor? Are you a practical effects guy?
Absolutely. I mean, there's just so much more of a tactile quality to and a timeless quality to a practical effect than a VFX. And I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but a crap practical effect always looks better than a crap SFX. And it's interesting to me that you have major SFX movies made 20 years ago, for example, Jurassic Park, that still have better SFX than the equivalent movies made today. So it's actually, I think, more difficult to create great visual effects, CGI, than it is to actually create decent practical effects. I mean, that's a very cynical answer, but I think that's true.
And then on set tour, we just shot tons and tons and tons of footage of all the practical effects, and we cried a lot during the edit and really worked on trying to make it look okay.
And it's just more fun to actually work with practical effects than it is with CGI, unless of course you're a CGI artist. But from a shooting point of view, and let's face it, most people get into filmmaking because they want it to be a fun experience to actually make a film, to actually create a film. There's just something about doing it in camera that's more satisfying from a filmmaking point of view, unless you of course are a CGI artist, but that's completely different thing.
Yeah, I think Sophie was the person who interacted the most with our silicon tentacles and soft robots. How is it from your point of view?
It was great, good fun. Apart from when I remember and the water went everywhere. Do you remember?
Yes.
That one time where I was like, is the camera underwater? What's happening? But I think Ross sorted it out. It was fine.
Yeah, a tank exploded and it dropped like 20 gallons of water on the camera. But I think Rupert, the cameraman, just dived underneath it and caught the camera and sailed out from underneath the table.
Oh, that was before I got there. That was when you did all the studio work. So nice. the camera was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
Considering we were in the middle of nowhere, if it wasn't fine, we probably wouldn't be sitting here discussing the film, because we'd have been completely screwed. So that was quite a stressful few minutes testing the camera.
Well, Tora, I really like what you said about how it should be fun. You know, that you get into it to have fun. I think that's an important point, and practical effects are a ton of fun.
Absolutely, because the reality is the majority of filmmaking is boring as hell, and isn't always fun. So you need to really grab hold of those moments that are actually. This is why we're doing this, because
working with robotic silicone tentacles is always fun.
Absolutely.
Always. Hey, here's a question for Sophie and Johanna. Greg Green, who's watching on Twitch, he wants to know if you guys have seen the films and if there's a particular moment or scene for each of you that really encapsulates your character.
Joanna?
Okay, yeah, I've seen it, and I think so. For my character, I don't know. I really liked when we filmed the first scene. I mean, which is the dinner scene, where I'm not actually speaking, but I feel like we're all sort of interacting, and I just remember filming that scene because the energy was so strong in the room, and it was just, it was really like a magical experience. And I think probably the fact that I'm not speaking is probably why it kind of defines my character, because she's a bit weird and like unpredictable in a way, and in that scene, a lot of her, it comes, you obviously haven't watched the movie yet, but you can tell a lot from what she's not saying, and just from the way she's reacting to what is said around the table. So I thought that was really beautiful and nice to film as well.
That's wonderful to hear. Sophie, how about you?
Yeah, that was a really fun scene when we did. This is quite a long scene, but it was really there's a lot of nuance in it for all of the characters, I think. Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times. I think for my character, I'd say it's hard to pinpoint, but I think the moment where the dinner scenes, where the relationship between Ludo's character and me, it starts to break down, and I think there's a couple of really nicely written scenes where it's like they're covering it over quite well. It's normal dinner, we're still doing normal dinner, but hang on a second, it's all falling around outside of this. And I think the nuance in those is really nice, and hopefully you can see Emma's like trying to keep hold of her marriage, basically.
Right. Well, fantastic. Got a question for you, Barbara. This is from Steve Stout, who's watching on Twitch. Now that you've done this role where you had to learn this accent, do you feel compelled to search out more roles that will really challenge you?
Well, I want all my roles to challenge me. And sometimes I'll turn down a role if I think I'm not going to bring something to it, or there's nothing really there for me to do or make of it. I mean, that, definitely people send me stuff and I go, well, what can I do with this? I have to think about that before I say yes to anything. So be it learning an accent or just playing a character that I've never played before, that is one of the criteria that I look for, something that excites me, that challenges me, that I can, hopefully bring something to it, with my personality or who I am as an actor or a person. And, also in addition to learning the accent and being able to do that and having that opportunity, I played the head of a cult, and that's something I have never been offered before. So that was interesting to me. And at the same time, I do think, and the ladies are talking about this dinner scene, and that's interesting to hear that you both feel like that scene is pivotal for you and kind of talks about, or felt like it was really embellishing your character, showing the audience who you were, even to yourselves. I feel like that, the dinner scene for me also, gave me some of that too, because I feel like even though I'm a cult member, I feel like I'm a reluctant cult member. And that, goes into back to the whole Lovecraft theme that we're talking about, of things being out of your control. I have this position in the town, and I have the position, of being the cult member with our group, and there's nothing I can do to get out of it. That was sort of an interesting thing for me to think about playing, just that aspect of the character.
Absolutely. Something I'm curious about, I said I was going to take questions from the viewers, but something I just occurred to me and I'd really like to dive into a little bit was the costume design, because you guys came up with a really cohesive look. I think, people have seen Barbara and the trailer and the key art for the film. Did you have a costume designer, or was that something, Andy and Tor, that you guys came up with together? And what were your inspirations?
Yeah, we did have a costume designer. For most of the costumes outside the cult, we just said, what they're called, Norwegian jumpers. And there are a lot of cool Norwegian jumpers in there. There's a lot of awesome knitwear. And then for the actual robes, I mean, that took a while, because lots of the robes that you can buy online are Halloween costumes, and they look like Halloween costumes. And if you get them wet, they look like transparent Halloween costumes. So we had to have the ones that we use made, and I think they're made out of something like sofa lining fabric or something a bit weird, but they've got a really cool texture. I think they cost quite a lot of money, and Tor was very angry about the budget. But I think it was worth it. I think they look good.
Barbara, did you get to keep your robe?
I was thinking about that, and somebody asked me that in an interview recently. What happened to those robes? Why didn't I get to keep one? And why didn't we get one of those medallions? We should have taken one.
Yeah.
What happened? Because those robes really were well made. They were really thick. It was very nice fabric, like canvas almost. What happened to them?
Yeah, the robes all came back to my house, and Ross, the main producer, because they'd been in the sea and been in the mud, Ross made me wash 30 robes in my washing machine. So I think they're still in a box somewhere in London. But if you want one, we can send you one.
Okay. Yes, maybe later when you get back to London. And what happened to the medallions that we all wore around our neck?
Yeah, they're still in a box as well. Yeah, I've got all those. Well, I think some were stolen by various crew members, but I've got my.
You're gonna have to donate a couple of those robes to Dread Central so we can do a giveaway for our fans, because I mean, they're just awesome.
That would be a cool thing to have.
Yeah, exactly. I say a couple so I can keep one, and then we can give another one away.
You can like
No, no, fantastic.
cozy wear at home. It's so cozy to wear.
Right on. I mean, they really were very well done. I mean, you could tell they had, you could tell that there was a substance to them, and that's why I wanted to bring it up and congratulate you guys on that aspect as well. The filmmakers Andy and Tor got another question for you guys here. What horror movies from your childhood inspired you to write, direct in the horror genre?
Oh, from my childhood, probably Evil Dead. I think I was 12 or so when that came out and watched it too many times. Yeah, so I think that's where my love of horror started. And then maybe The Thing as well, which did practical effects with slightly more pizzazz than we used in this. So, Tor, what do you?
Well, this is going to sound terribly sycophantic, not necessarily from my childhood, but my teenage years certainly, and Reanimator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really was one of the first horror movies that I watched that really had a real effect on me. I mean, I just think it's so unique tonally, and I hadn't seen anything like that before, and to eventually work with Barbara is such an amazing thing in my life because of that. So yeah, I'm not just saying that because Barbara's here. I truly mean that.
Well, there's a humorous aspect and a wryness to the way you wrote the script that I could see fit some of, it's representative of some of the tonal aspects of Reanimator as well. Was that intentional? It must have been because you feel influenced by that movie a little bit.
Yeah, we were just ripping you guys off, really.
No.
All the films you guys mentioned, Reanimator, Evil Dead, I forget the other thing. They all have these Lovecraftian elements, which brings me to another question, because I got a bunch of questions here to choose from. But since you guys mentioned those, someone was asking, what specifically about working with Lovecraft-inspired materials do you enjoy? For example, the atmosphere, the themes, the creatures. What draws you guys to these Lovecraftian stories and made you produce your own?
Personally, I think it's the themes of cosmic horror. The fact that you aren't in control of anything that happens to you. And there are forces beyond understanding that are kind of coming down and acting on this situation. I think that's really interesting. And what we tried to do here was, as Barbara mentioned earlier, we if you're in a Cthulhu cult, you probably don't want to be, and in this story, kind of he was there first, the humans arrived, and then they were stuck with him. And I think exploring that aspect of, they're in this terrible situation and they might be reluctant cult members rather than enthusiastic cult members like every other cult movie you ever see. I think, we found that interesting to explore.
Fantastic. Barbara, I got a question for you here, kind of out of left field, but we're talking in our tech check about how you did recent voiceover work on Back 4 Blood. So we got Drew, Barbara, we got Drew from Twitch asking about your experience working on Back 4 Blood, and if there's any chance that you might start playing video games on your own Twitch channel.
Well, let's see, maybe. Yeah, I play a little video games with my son.
Oh yeah? What are your favorites? Because that was his follow-up.
Who the heck knows what I'm playing? My son will be playing and then I'll say, what are you doing? Let me try. So I don't play enough games to even know what the names of them are. I'll just admit that right off the bat. But my son was more excited than me when I got the video game. I said, I'm going to be doing this video game. It's called Back 4 Blood. It's the sequel to Left 4 Dead. And he's like, Left 4 Dead? That's an amazing game. And I'm like, what's Left 4 Dead? anyway, so I saw a little bit of Left 4 Dead because he had the game and he showed me, and it was an incredible experience. Let me tell you, it's a whole new world. I haven't done voiceovers before. The writer of that game is a horror fan, Simon McKenzie, and so he wanted me for the part, and just I had to audition for it and read some of the lines, but he said he basically wrote it for me, not even knowing if I would be able to do it or not. But you know, the powers that be said, okay, you can cast her if you'd like, and then it was like showing up and being in a school, because I was basically in the booth and they were throwing out a lot of terminology to me that I didn't know what they meant or what they were saying. And so they really brought me along and taught me so much about just, you know, they said something to me like, you know, if I have to have an exertion or something, I had a lot of lines in the game, but I have to have many exertions. And they would say, well, give it a little pre-life before you say your line. And I'm like, what's that? What's a pre-life? What does that mean? You know, so instead of saying, you know, I'm going to blow these suckers away, you go, I'm going to blow these suckers away. And then that's going to help your line. And then they might take the pre-life off, or they might keep it in.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I know what pre-life is. And just other little things that they taught me about. We had the sound guy who was I had to do it in a booth in San Francisco, and they were all south of LA, and we were all on a Zoom together. And the sound guy was amazing with all the kinds of exertions. You know, there's different kinds of exertions. So when your character is like jumping up on something, or when you get, you know, hit in the stomach, ooh. So they would give me examples of all these different ways to do the sounds. And so now I feel like I could probably do another one. And I just had so much fun. It was really exciting for me, and exhausting.
Fantastic.
And exhausting. I would come home every day after doing 800 lines of dialogue and just take a nap. It was very fast. It was insane, but really fun. So anyway, thanks for being excited for Back 4 Blood, because I am too.
Yeah, you know, Dread Central launched our sister site about a year ago, Dread XP, all about video games. So I might be connecting you with, you know, some of my writers over there, because, you know, we'd love to hear about, you know, your budding career in video games, you know, now that you've mastered Lovecraftian horror, you know, just everything you do is really, really incredible. I've had such a great afternoon with you guys. I want to start bringing it to a close, but I want to go around and give everyone a chance to talk about what they're working on next. So let's start with Johanna. What are you working on next? Where can we see you after Sacrifice?
Well, it's kind of an open book at the moment. We'll see. But you know, I'm just hoping to keep working, like book some other feature films or like TV series. That would be my dream, actually, to book like a big TV series.
You know, we'd love to see you in something like that. So, you know, just keep us in the loop, because whatever you work on next, you definitely have support and fans at Dread Central. We're just, you know, so thrilled with your performance in Sacrifice, and, you know, can't wait to see how your career unfolds.
Thank you.
Sophie, what are you working on these days?
Well, nothing at the minute. It's been just a really tough year. Auditions are starting to pick back up, but we're in lockdown in the UK. So like a pretty strict lockdown, which means no casting in the room. Productions aren't being allowed to film, I don't think, out in Europe. So it's, yeah, there's not loads going on, which is a massive shame. Obviously, like this would normally be together, and yeah, it's just very different at the minute. But yeah, I just had a British film about snooker release a couple of months ago called Break. So yeah, you can kind of see about that. Yeah, and then hopefully things pick back up again soon.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, definitely keep us in the loop on everything you're working on, because we want to be appraised of whatever you do next. Barbara, how about you? What's next on your plate?
Well, the Back 4 Blood thing's coming out, I think, in June. And then I was fortunate enough to work on a film called Jacob's Wife right before the pandemic hit. We filmed it this past February, and we've been in post-production ever since. Everything's completely done, and then we're going to premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival. So
we are so excited to see that. Yeah, we are all just so excited. We can't wait. We can't wait. Andy and Tor, you know, I don't want to lump you together, but you know, do you guys have projects that you're working on together and or individually?
Yeah, both. I think we've got a couple of horror movies that we're trying to raise money for. We're always trying to raise money for things. And we've also got a big project we're also trying to raise money for, which is, how do we describe it? Kind of high plains drifter with violence. So if that sounds good to anybody, then send us $10 million and we'll make
checks in the mail. Well, what about individually? What do you guys have going on?
The same. I've got a couple of horror movies in development and one kind of horror thriller thing. But again, trying to get the money locked, it's always difficult.
Making movies is fun. Raising the money is horrible.
Correct. Although according to Tor, making movies is largely horrible too.
except when you're working with practical effects like silicon tentacles. Tor, what are you working on?
So as Andy's pointed out, we've got this medieval western, I guess we'll describe it as, and also another horror film that we got pretty close to shooting just before Sacrifice. Actually, Sacrifice, to be honest, was a consequence of this other project falling through at the last moment, which was actually set in America, set in Utah. But yeah, we had some difficulties. So hopefully, assuming the world doesn't actually end, which is a big assumption to make, but if it doesn't, then we'll hopefully try and get that back off the ground and maybe be filming in Utah next year. Fingers crossed.
Definitely keeping my fingers crossed for you, although I can't say I'm sorry that you know, it didn't work out sooner if the result is Sacrifice, because Sacrifice is such an amazing film. Released today on VOD. We've got the Blu-ray coming out the first week in March, but you don't have to wait. Check out The Sacrifice right now on VOD. I'm going to go on the record and say it's, you know, definitely one of the best of the year so far, but I think it has staying power. I think you're going to see Sacrifice on a lot of top 10 horror movies of 2021 lists come December and January. I really do. I'm going on the record right now. I'd like to just go around one last time and give you all a chance to get some final words about Sacrifice. You know, let our viewers know why they should be excited to check it out. And this time I will start with you, Tor.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to defer to you and say I'm very, very hopeful that everything Josh just said is true and correct and comes to pass.
Fantastic. Johanna, any final words about Sacrifice and why our viewers and readers should be excited to see it?
Yes, I think it's a really nice mix of like creepy, folklore, Scandinavian horror, cosmic horror. You know, it's a nice combination with like lots of elements put together. So definitely, you know, a unique. You know, I feel like it's a unique setting.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Well, thanks again for being here. I mean, your character really is kind of like the X factor of the film. You know, that you're always wondering what's below the surface, which, you know, then becomes a metaphor for all of Sacrifice. You just really knocked our socks off, and I'm so glad you could be here. Sophie, final thoughts on Sacrifice?
Yeah, I think the same as Joanna. It's such a mix, to me, such a mix of genres. I think the appeal for me is the real sort of human heart of it, and obviously I focused on that with my work because that's where Emma, that's her story. It's you know, she's very much in the real world, but with so much else going on around, and I think that yeah, I think that really aids the film, as well as the scenery for me. If you watch it for nothing else, watch it for the beautiful scenery.
Well, it is a beautiful film, but I'm not going to let you sell yourself short, because your character is the linchpin, and your success is the film's success. And you really nailed it. You played this really just strong character who's not going to take shit, really takes charge. And the fact, like I said, you just have a brilliant American accent. You speak better American than I do. You know, and you killed it. So congratulations. People should definitely be excited to check you out in Sacrifice. Barbara, final thoughts about Sacrifice on VOD today?
Yeah, well, you know, it has some Lovecraft offerings, and it's cosmic horror, and it's a beautiful script written by these guys and filmed with such care and tenderness. Really, I mean, you guys did an amazing job. And I also want to highlight these actresses here, and also talk a little bit just for a second about Ludovic Hughes, who's also one of the main characters. And you know, you show up on a set and you don't know who your acting partners are going to be. And I feel like one of the strengths of this film are the performances. And I feel like, especially for these young people, their characterizations were so compelling and so believable and so good. I was in awe when I was acting with all of you. I just think your performances make the film. And really, especially to you, Sophie, this is your film and you're the star of it. And it was thrilling to watch you work. You're so good. And Joanna, I'm happy to work with you for, you know, your first movie. And I know you're going to go places. And I just have to say, you know, Sophie, you just, you know, you were just amazing. You were like one of the best acting partners I've ever worked with, and certainly one of the best younger people I've ever worked with.
Barbara, that's so nice. Thank you so much, especially coming from you. Honestly, that really means a lot. Really
high praise. And Barbara, you're 100% correct that you know the cast was just brilliant all around, and that does include you, with you know taking on the challenge of a foreign accent. You know, even though you're a character actress that we're also familiar with, really brave. You know, we just love everything you do, and we're just so happy to you know be the company behind Sacrifice, to be sharing it with the world. It's just so thoroughly exciting for us. Andy, any final words to bring us home about why we should be excited to check out Sacrifice?
Yeah, I was about to say exactly the same thing that Barbara said, that most horror films work on shock or gore or effects, but really this one's, and we really wanted it to work out like this, it's got heart and performances are amazing. But Barbara said that, so I'll say, you know, I think it's a real homage to the Call of Cthulhu and to Lovecraft generally. So if you're a Lovecraft fan, then look for the references, they're everywhere.
They are little cutie Cthulhu plush toy. You got to market those too. Well, thanks again to all of the panelists for today's Dissecting Horror Q&A. I hope all of you who RSVP'd for the virtual screening in about 30 minutes are excited to check out Sacrifice. The rest of you, maybe who aren't in America, who didn't RSVP, or you can now see Sacrifice legally on VOD, always legally. And you know, we're just so excited to be bringing this film to the world. Sacrifice on VOD today, comes out on Blu-ray first week in March. Again, thank you all for being here. Thanks to my team at Dread Central for backing me up on this. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Cheers. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.